I just want to start by talking a little bit about what I mean by impossible possibilities. The bottom line for me in my life is if you can't dream it, you won't do it. So, everything I've ever done in my career, and I'll share a little bit about that, everything I've done has been based on the size of my dream at any given time. And even if I don't get all the way to the end, it's way more than I would have gotten than if I hadn't dreamed at all. So a little bit about kind of my background and that philosophy for me. I started out actually as a chemical engineer. So I started in a very different space than I'm in now. Today, I'm a paid public speaker. I'm a organization development consultant. I spend a lot of my time working on change and transformative change for communities. Um, and my path has always been about dreaming really big. I started out having some pretty serious health issues in my younger 20s, and I realized that my career was just not for me. My internal purpose was not lining up with my external environment, and it was physically destroying me. And so I knew I needed to make some leaps. So on the side, I started coaching. I knew that I wanted to help people. I knew engineering was great and I was problem solving, but I wasn't solving the kinds of problems I wanted to be. And so I started a side hustle basically. And I kept trying for like 2 or 3 years on the side of my full-time job um, to build a value proposition that would be of a full-time viable income. And at the same time, I negotiated a location free role for myself. And, I've talked to many people since then about getting location free roles. And a lot of people are just afraid to ask their boss. And I just wasn't afraid to ask. I was like, I'm going to leave if this doesn't work for me. So, let's figure out how we can make this work. What do you need to trust me? And we started that way. So that was another big dream I had, and it happened, and it enabled me to then really explore my passions. So when I left my full time job, one of the things that spurred me finally to leave was I did my first TEDx talk, and even doing the TEDx talk was a really big leap. It was an impossible possibility for me. I had just moved to a new town and I just was Googling to see, hey, what are some major events that are looking for speakers? And TEDx popped up. And I said, well, what's the worst that could happen? Like they say no. So I applied and I was 25 at the time. I really didn't think that they would, say yes, and they did, and it was about millennials, and you can look it up if you're interested. And it was a grueling process. It was 6 weeks before the event, and they coach you the entire way. If you want to talk to me about TEDx anytime, feel free. Um, but I just said, okay, I need a way to. What is the fastest way for me to get known in this new town? And that was the way I chose. And that's where I learned that paid speaking was a great value proposition for a full time viable income. So then I left my corporate job and I set a target. Within 3 months, Crystal, you are going to create a sellable product. And so I created a training around generations in 3 months. I paid 10 grand to attend a conference where there would be executives in attendance who were matched to me so I could interview them and sell my solution. And lo and behold, out of that, Wells Fargo hired me as a consultant for something, and that was now 9 years ago, and I am where I am today. And I've published a couple of books and so on and so forth. You can find me on LinkedIn. I say all that because I want you all to be thinking about what your impossible possibilities are. And let me tell you a little bit more about what that is. An impossible possibility is a future avenue, a change that you want and can benefit from, but you don't believe is possible. Something I've been really inspired by lately is the Japanese concept of ikigai. Um, Jeremy, if you don't mind typing that for me in chat. There's a wonderful book we can recommend around this, but it's a Japanese concept that's sort of like a raison d'être, like a reason to be. It's the Japanese philosophy behind that. And in that, they talk about the difference between this impossible possibility and incremental improvements. When you set your goals and they are easily achievable objectives that you're sure you can reach, that's not what we're talking about today. Those are incremental improvements. We do those all the time. A radical change goal involves having to change kind of everything, your paradigm to make this thing happen. And oftentimes it's that belief that's holding you back. You know that you want it, you know it would benefit you, but you just don't believe it's really possible. And then, there's a lot of excuses you might throw up for why. Um so in a little bit, we're going to be asking you to write up some 2021 goals on the community forum if that's available to you. So I want you to go ahead and start thinking about what your impossible possibility might be for 2021. And this could be a business goal, but it can also be a personal goal. You might have, I have often impossible possibilities with my family that I like to think about and see like, hey, what would need to be true for this to be real? So that's the first concept I just wanted to talk about was impossible possibilities. The second part of this is by definition of what I'm saying is overcoming yourself. Because a lot of times what stands between you and that impossible possibility is you, your beliefs, your mindset, your knowledge base potentially, right? There might be things you don't know that could help you get to that impossibility. So, I know a lot of people love affirmations. I love them too. I like to write these like joyous, "You're amazing, Crystal." Look at it in the mirror. Write it up in the shower condensation. Okay, Jeremy sees me do this too much. So, okay, now I'm giving away too much information. Um, what I have is a little bit of a twist on affirmations because I started realizing that it's not just about something positive and like self-esteem boosting, but it's really the statement or question you most need to hear or ask yourself. So, for example, back in October last year, I I do this thing where I sometimes I don't know about you all, but I can get overwhelmed with a bunch of thoughts and then I end up feeling kind of numb, like I'm not feeling anything and I'm just sort of in this dead space. And so when I do that, I end up like mind mapping the actual feelings that are happening behind the numbness. I do this a lot when cuz I my go-to for vegging out is Netflix. And when I get in that zone, I'm like, okay, there's something behind this happening for me right now. Instead of watching that next show, that moment Netflix asks, "Hey, are you still watching right now?" You've watched too much, by the way. When you get if you've never seen that message, I totally applaud you. But anyway, if you get that message, that's when I really back up and I say, what's really behind this? And one of these times that I did that, I ended up writing down the thing I most needed to hear. And that was, do I have the energy and the will to change again? Because I had been sitting there, been reinventing myself every year, like just these impossible possibilities. They're great, but they can also be tiring, right? So I had to just ask myself, this is the question I really needed to ask. So I want to give you all a moment, just in silence, to write down a doubt that might have been plaguing you, that might have been on your mind in the shadows. Sometimes I find like a shadow self speaking to me. Take a moment to write down a doubt and think about if there's something you need to tell yourself. And if you're struggling with that part, try to just fill in the blank. Is it possible that? And fill in that blank. Okay, awesome. So, what I love about this question is that it's very dynamic, and it's a really helpful practice to start to create for yourself to really write down what the doubt is, to surface it from the shadows so you can actually work with it. A lot of times when you're working on really big goals, which in the introductions I heard so many people working on so many fascinating and amazing things. When you're working on things that are that big, it does if you leave those doubts in the background, they're just kind of these invisible energy eaters. And so just taking a moment in any moment to just articulate that for yourself. Bring it out of the shadows, put it in the surface, and then just ask yourself, what do I need to hear related to this? Is it possible that XYZ? Who do I need to talk to that might give me a different perspective that can help me see the things I don't know that I don't know? And then the last point I'll share is related to strategy. Strategy at the end of the day, it's the how that you're going to reach your goals this year. Um, there's a lot that can be said on strategy. The thing I want to share has to do with kind of, I guess it's my tagline, but it's what's the possibility in different. What I mean by that, this is a very unique possibility, and it's what happens if in your strategy you're constantly reaching out to people who are totally different than you, spaces or fields that are totally different than yours. For example, I'm just because I'm looking at Sean right now and I know Sean, like Sean does all these do it yourself stuff on YouTube and it's amazing. And it's a totally different field than change transformation work in organizations. And yet I know that just by watching something or talking to Sean, I get a different idea that I can apply to what I'm doing. And it might break through some of those doubts I'm having about an impossible possibility. So the possibility of different, including that in your strategy, is about really seeking what you don't know, who you don't know, and really being comfortable with that. If you've been in the podcasting space for a long time and you don't even have a goal to get into anything else, doesn't matter. Go talk to someone in a totally unrelated field. Go talk to someone who's doing door to door knocking because you don't know what mental beliefs that person has that could break through a block you might have been having. Um, so that's the last thing I wanted to share, just from my end. Uh, this is one of the reasons why the community is so important. Why communities like this are so important. Jeremy's had a lot of help working on building this, and one of the things we talked about was how thought leaders and influencers really just don't have an overall umbrella space to connect. Places where public speaking, book publishing, YouTube, podcasts, Instagram, where all of these things live together in one space. So as you think about your goals, one of the things we just wanted to share was, if you haven't had a chance taking a look at the competency model on the website, this could be a really great way for you to think about your impossible possibilities this year. The way it's basically broken out is you've got kind of four big roles. Sorry, so backing up, we surveyed a lot of people to figure out, hey, what do you think are the main capabilities you need to succeed as a thought leader or influencer? And out of that, we found these things in common. And so we organized it by role. We all know we wear a lot of different hats. So you kind of have these four different hats of influencer, business owner, thriving individual, thought leader. And then down here, you can see that for each of those roles, we've identified and synthesized the key capabilities you all said you really need to be successful. And so as you click through this, you could kind of get a feel for how you might organize perhaps your learning goals. Maybe there's something around producing complex content that's new for you, and that's a place where you want to really grow your capabilities. And you might have just learned, hey, like I just met someone who was a director in my breakout rooms, and I'd like to talk to them about that. Um, so just thinking through some of those things. So this is available on the AIT site. It's under the About tab if you're looking for it.